Hello, my beautiful lady gardens. Put the kettle on, grab a seat and settle in. This is High Tea with Lady B. As we relive the first year of High Tea with Lady B, who could forget our chat with Peta Romeo? It was sensational. It was one of our most downloaded podcasts. We are going to relive those moments with her. Enjoy. Hello, ladies, and welcome back to High Tea with Lady B. This week's episode is with the amazing Peta Romeo, and our topic is Just Don't Freaking Touch Me. Here are a few snippets from our podcast. Now, I'd love to say that they were all my ideas, but this is me having a chat to Peta prior to the interview about the amazing topics that she is going to talk to us about. Have a listen. Totally enjoy the episode.
Sex has been drenched in shame for women, and our sexuality is wrapped up with our trauma. I thought that was really powerful. It doesn't have to be just sexual trauma. It's when you've broken up with that first boyfriend, you've been gaslit, whatever it is, there's this trauma around our sexuality. You become a mum and have to give yourself to your child. Everyone wants to touch you. And you're like, just don't fucking touch me. Nobody touched me. And you come to the end of the day and your kid still wants to sleep next to you or crawling in bed with you at night. And you just want to go to another bed and be like, nobody touched me. You're constantly giving yourself. And then you're expected to come back and be, oh, yeah, sure. Someone else have some of me. Everyone wants something from you. You're constantly giving your empathy and your touch. I'm a neurodivergent mum. And empathy is a little learned when you're neurodiverse. And when you're giving that all the time, of course, you have empathy for your kids. But when you're constantly giving it, your husband comes to you about something, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, I literally don't care. Yeah, of course. And you don't want to be like that because it's actually not how you feel. Like you want to connect with them, but when you're connecting with everyone else all the time, you're just like, fuck off. I've got no empathy left. My empathy bucket is full. It's gone.
The first one is just to normalize that female sexuality is most, let's say 80%, don't quote me on the statistic, but the majority of female sexuality is what's called responsive sexuality and not a spontaneous sexuality.
You develop these coping mechanisms when you're younger. When you're older, you're like, man, I don't have time for these coping mechanisms, so just nobody fucking talk to me. A sexual desire. Allow yourself to let go and listen to yourself, letting go of all the ways we look at ourselves, keep ourselves busy to avoid our real selves. Scan the room and make sure other people are comfortable and you're not making sure you're comfortable. I'm super excited today to talk with Peta Romeo. She hosts the podcast, The Ecology of Intimacy. If you haven't listened to it, you have got to listen to it. It is awesome. She is a certified somatic sex and love relationship coach with a background of sexology. She blends the latest science with ancient wisdom traditions of Tantra and Taoism as they relate to spiritual and sexual liberation. I'm super excited to have you here today.
So thrilled to be here too.
Yes. So we are going to talk about the topic that we all feel, especially once we become mums and then we start hitting perimenopause and we're like, just don't fucking touch me, basically. We've talked about it on our calls before and we're like, this is such a fantastic topic. We are constantly fulfilling everyone else's needs. I know you've talked about this in your podcast, but when I listened to it, it just really resonated with me. I'd love you to chat a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to the way we're socialized as young children. You're born, you're pronounced a female, you have a vulva. And from that point onwards, you're socialized to give your body and your attention in source of other people's comfort. So as a little girl, I'm a child of the 70s, and in my upbringing and my friends' upbringing, it was all about being a good girl, scanning your environment, giving your auntie or uncle a hug or a kiss to make them feel included, to make them feel better, to make them feel comfort. And you're just programmed from that young age to kind of ignore your own internal systems or your own boundaries and signals around your own comfort and ensure other people's comfort, and to use your body as a way to do that, right? So then we progress through our teenage years and our adolescence, and we're not given that kind of sexuality education that does reinforce that we do have the right to have our boundaries. There are conversations starting to begin around consent, but they're nowhere near where they need to be. But it's great that the progress is happening. They certainly weren't in place when I was going through school. And so you're grappling with your sexuality, coming from this place of not having that internal sense of, oh, it's okay for me to say no. It's okay for me to upset someone else or let someone else down. And so I can be comfortable at their expense. It feels like there's that trade-off. I have to either make them feel comfortable by making myself uncomfortable, or deal with the massive fallout that you seem to feel afraid of letting someone else down or making someone else feel comfortable. And we're kind of socialized to see that that's really selfish and unacceptable. And so then you become a mom if you choose to have your babies. And all of that stuff that you've kind of been programmed with, and the way that you coped with being raised in that way, because you're going through this massive portal of caring for this little child and seeing how helpless and everything that they are. And you just become so touched out and so exhausted by everything that's being required of you in those moments. And in that time, your babies are on you all the time, right? Whether you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding, they're on you. You're not sleeping. And even as they grow older to become toddlers and then young children, they still need your body. Your body becomes that site of regulation, of comfort, of safety. They need you to still help them fall asleep. They need so much from you. And then at the end of the day, your partner needs you as well. But then you go through this other portal, because I heard you mention perimenopause, and I know I'm kind of skipping over a big landscape here, but I really want to get to this point. Perimenopause is this incredible portal where you just don't give a damn anymore. You get to a point in your life.
And I feel for our husbands, because we get there, we're like, I don't fucking care. Like, you know, you're trying to connect, and you're like, mate, I've had everyone want to touch me today. I don't fucking care anymore.
Don't touch me. And because all your estrogen's gone, right? You're losing your estrogen. And it's like the veil, right? Your whole life.
The empathy veil. It's like
the empathy veil is gone.
Lifting. Yeah. And you're like,
right.
I used to care about everyone. And now I just don't want to care about fucking anyone.
I have cared for everyone my entire life. I have given my empathy my entire life, my time, my energy, everything I've given. And then you hit perimenopause. Estrogen goes, you don't really care about being desirable anymore. Sex is the last thing on your mind. You're going through all these massive changes. You're just like, fucking leave me alone and let me work out what this part of my life is going to be about now. It really is reorienting to yourself. It is a beautiful opportunity for us to reorient into ourselves.
It really is. And I loved what you had said from the beginning, especially as girls of the 70s and 80s. I think that is changing. I see that a lot in my daughters. But we were brought up to be good girls and people please. As you said in your podcast, the message to girls was that you enter a room and scan it and you're making sure everyone feels comfortable in the room, but you actually forget about what your comfort is and how important that is to you. And then you go through life having kids and you're scanning that they're comfortable and everything's okay. We're in this generation where we do kind of micro-protect our children, which is hard. And then you get to the end of the day, and as you said, you're stuffed. You don't want to keep micromanaging. You won't listen to anyone else's problems. You literally just want to like sit down, have a cup of tea in bed, read a book. And then your husband comes in and they're like, oh, how are you, honey? Let's try to initiate something. And you're literally looking and going, I don't want to be here. I've got nothing right now. I think it's really interesting how you talked about how girls are trying to be people pleasers. And then we go through this stage of going, I'm not going to please anybody anymore. I think that's really tough in both sides of relationships as well. What would be your message to mothers and women who are going through that change, and how we should be looking at ourselves and liberating our sexual being and spirituality?
Yeah, I love that. I think there's two parts that I want to touch on with that beautiful question is about the first one is just to normalize that female sexuality is most, let's say 80%, don't quote me on the statistic, but the majority of female sexuality is what's called responsive sexuality and not a spontaneous sexuality. This is discussed in a beautiful sexologist's work, Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, which talks about how we've been socialized to feel like male sexuality is the gold standard. And if we're not having sex like a man, if our desire isn't there as soon as someone wants to have sex with us, then there's something wrong with our level of desire. We're not broken males in terms of our sexuality. We are fully functioning females. We just haven't been educated on the fact that our desire, our sexuality arises in response to the context that we're in. It's completely normal to go through the portal of motherhood and not be able to even think about having sex, not want it, not have any energy for it, and feel like your desire has just up and left the building. Because in response to the context that you're now in, everything has changed. Before you had your kids, your partner was the main priority in your life, and you're probably having an amazing life and a beautiful connection. Having a baby is like putting a grenade in the middle of your relationship because everything just goes up in the air, and then you try and pick up all the pieces and work out what the deal is now. But we're biologically wired to focus on our offspring, on our children for their survival. I think that's very primal instinct in every mother.
That's what our bodies are made for, right? We are there to keep our children alive. I was looking at the symptoms of menopause postnatal, and they're very similar because we have a big drop in estrogen. So you don't sleep, perimenopause, menopause, and after a baby, we don't sleep because we need to wake all the time to keep our baby awake. You get hot afterwards, which I feel like never actually goes back to the same thing. But it's to keep our baby warm. So there's all these things that happen to us after having a baby. And actually, I suppose we can't expect men to have the exact same primal instinct that we do after we have children. But then what happens is we're so primal, we're so involved with that child because we have to be. We're feeding them, we're doing everything for them. Our relationship does shift. And I think that can be a hard thing for our partners. It's also a hard thing for ourselves. You've got something on you all the time, and you do lose a part of who you were. The brain reprograms with grow white matter in our brain. I think they've now done studies on MRIs where it actually changes and grows. And it's in that prefrontal cortex, I think it is, where it's about empathy and connection. And our husbands don't get that. And there is that shift in us, and our brains change. And so we change. And it is hard. You start to feel like you're not yourself anymore. And it's a journey backwards to yourself. After you said it before in one of your podcasts, you mentioned that we're also on this journey. We had all these coping strategies around whatever it be, our sexuality or what's happened in our past. And then we become mothers and we move forward into a different area. We don't use those coping strategies anymore because we just don't have time. I think that was really interesting how you touched on that. I'll let you explain that a bit further.
I feel like when you become a mum, the level of exhaustion is just so high, and your level of energy and time becomes such finite resources, whereas before they seemed kind of infinite, and you had all this spare energy that you could put in to unconsciously keeping your coping mechanisms in place. Whatever they were, whatever your experiences were growing up, we all develop our own coping mechanisms or responses to trauma. And you go through motherhood and you don't have that extra energy anymore to unconsciously keep everything on lockdown, to keep everything in place. And that's why sometimes when you become a mum, it can feel like all of a sudden, all of your old traumas, all of the old stuff just comes rushing back, and you're in this place of not being able to cope anymore. All the old mechanisms just aren't working. And so you don't have the energy to deal with this anymore. You really are changing at such a rapid rate. And it's fascinating to hear that about how the brain is changing too, because whole bodies, your body, your sexuality, your neurology, everything seems to be just in this incredible state of change.
I love how you also sort of said you let go of all the ways we looked at ourselves to keep ourselves busy to avoid our real selves. We used to kind of be doing all these things to keep ourselves busy to actually avoid who we are. And then we have kids and we're exhausted, and those avoidances become such a hindrance. And then you dive down into not knowing who you are. You mentioned about healing and showing up for yourselves and that inner child and living our old patterns that have become blocks. We tend to do that more as we get older. You're putting up these blocks to survive because you can't invest so much like you used to.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to your energy levels and your time being so finite and having this other human life that's so absolutely vulnerable and dependent on you for everything. You can't be busy in the old ways that you used to keep yourself busy in order to avoid the feelings you didn't want to feel. You're in this space now where all those feelings are probably coming up and you're in a really uncomfortable place where you're starting to feel all those feelings again because they're just coming to the surface. Your threshold for being able to keep everything in check is completely lowered. And you're also in this point in your life where you're like, who am I now? I don't even know who I am anymore. Who I was before I had my kids, I'm not that person anymore. It's not about trying to get back to that. I think a lot of women try and get back to who they were before they had kids, but the journey really is finding out who you are now with all the different identities. You're a mother, you're a lover, you're a partner, you're a colleague, you're a friend, you're all these things, and how you can start to integrate and become more true to who you really are. You don't have the energy for the false anymore.
For the false. I like that because I think after becoming a mom, I'm a stronger person.
Yeah.
And you don't give a shit as much.
Yes.
I think it's about embracing that and then embracing that sexually as well, because when you are a mom, you're kind of like, but I'm a mom, should I be acting like that? Even though it's with your husband or a partner, or it doesn't even matter, because we have been programmed and educated. The sex is shameful. As you said, we've been educated not to get pregnant, how not to get an STD. There's a lot of negativity around sex. It's a really taboo subject. And then you become a mother and you actually start to remember what those messages were towards you when you were 10, 12, 13, 14, and obviously in your teens. And then you're in this portal of like, I've got to set this example, but then that's not really a really great example either, because we need to progress from what those sexual feelings and desires are, and they're not just for men, they're actually for women, and women are allowed to be like a sexual being. Whereas my mum would be like, oh my God, what are you talking about? How could you be talking about sex?
It's so fascinating.
That's just a male thing. Like, it's like, oh, that's what men do. But I know that's not actually her thoughts, but that was what she thought she had to tell me as a woman. I think we really need to try and move forward with that. And that's a barrier for women our age.
Absolutely. It is an incredible thing to realize that when we become aware of all this conditioning, like I am so inhibited and I have so much shame and embarrassment around my sexuality, around my body, because a lot of the messages that we receive as girls growing up are very sex negative and body negative, and your body's never good enough. We have a deep sense of unworthiness, often editing ourselves physically in the bedroom, not moving into certain positions because our tummy goes to the side. Again, it comes back to scanning the room and giving everybody else what we think they need. Our sexuality up onto, I guess, motherhood and sometimes beyond, it depends on your own personal journey, can be quite performative. I know it was for me in my younger years, performing sexuality instead of truly embodying it. Really embodying it is the journey to sexual liberation and healing the shame, understanding that it's normal that we feel it because it's the soup we've all been swimming in terms of our sexuality education. We weren't taught that our bodies are yet to be quantified. It's unquantifiable scientifically how much pleasure the female body is biologically wired to experience. We have so many different capacities of orgasm. You can have clitoral, you can have G-zone, you can have blended, you can have cervical orgasms, you can have a full body energetic orgasm.
We need to actually talk about this because I'm like, what's the G zone? Like what? Like,
Oh my God.
But then what? Geez, let's talk. What are those ones? Tell me.
And we're not given these tools. We're not taught about our body.
Yeah. So you said the G zone. So I'm assuming the G spot.
The G spot is now kind of like a whole zone. So it's like the paraurethral glands and the internal clitoral structure, because the clitoris itself isn't just a button at the top of the vulva. It's actually a whole neural structure that mirrors the same neural structure as the male genitalia. We are designed to have erections just as male genitalia is designed to have erections. They're the same neural structure. And again, I'll come back to Emily Nagoski's work. She is such a leader in this field. She said famously that it's just all the same parts. It's just organized differently.
I read recently that the male penis has 4,000 neurons, but we actually have 8,000 in the clitoris. So there's more there than what actually is for a male.
Yeah. And actually the 8,000 one has just been up to, I think the recent research says it's 10,000 plus. Never ending.
Wow.
Clitoris. Yes.
So that's amazing.
And there's also been, you'll love this, a study that compares a basic clitoral orgasm with a hit of a therapeutic dose of psilocybin in terms of mystical experiences, transformational experiences, healing, and pleasure, I think it was. Just the capacity for it to transform your life and put you into altered states of healing and consciousness. This was done under laboratory conditions, the therapeutic dose of psilocybin, and the clitoral orgasm was done in a basic laboratory setting.
Would have been very interesting to be one of the test cases on that.
Right? Yeah. You have to orgasm under those conditions. You can imagine that you would have a better orgasm at home, relaxed. So this is a very basic clitoral orgasm we're talking about. Something done under conditions that are not ideal. And the clitoral orgasm came out on top.
Wow.
Your clitoris is so much more powerful than a therapeutic dose of psilocybin.
That's incredible.
That's the gold standard for healing on the planet right now.
Well, when you think about it, however many years ago the vibrator was developed, that was actually developed for women hysteria. They were onto something, and then I don't know what happened to the research. I mean, they have still produced some pretty good stuff, but that's why it was developed. And then they've gone down drugs and other routes now.
Yeah, exactly. But it is really interesting to me that there's a lot of medicine and a lot of science behind Viagra and things to keep male sexuality thriving and flourishing. And the sex research for female sexuality is very much a new frontier in medicine and science.
Yes. Well, I was streaming a menopause conference on the weekend. I loved what one of the ladies said. She said there's all this medication to keep men sexually active, right? But who's looking after the people that are supposed to be having sex with them?
I love that.
Yeah, actually, who is? They're not. It's really hard to get progesterone and estrogen. They'll tell you you're too young or you're too this or too that. But no, don't go on the pill, but actually get a Mirena and have an ablation. Like, what the fuck? And then you're like, okay, you can take it now, but I don't know if we should give you testosterone. Apparently, Australia is one of the only countries that is now using testosterone, and it's not just for sexual function, but for all other functions in our body. It's not just a male hormone. That's just something apparently that they found in cow's balls and went, right, that's a male thing. But males have estrogen and we have testosterone. It's all utilized. And I thought it was the best comment. Who is actually looking after the people that are supposed to be having sex with the men that are taking Viagra or not taking Viagra?
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. We're really kind of stumbling around in the dark a lot of the time when it comes to our sexuality. And so when talking about all the different orgasms that we can have and not even understanding that our bodies are capable of that, not even knowing what the orgasms are that we can have is real.
Because we digressed. Yes, sorry. There was the clitoris. There was somewhere else.
G-zone. You can have a blended orgasm, which is clitoral and G-zone combined. You can have a cervical orgasm. Your cervix is actually designed to be highly orgasmic, and those orgasms can literally give you a God consciousness experience. They are life-changing cervical orgasms.
Wow. I need one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe I've be a more relaxed mother.
In order to achieve something like that, and this is where the healing journey comes in and why it's so supportive, I find, to nurture and nourish female sexuality through practices rooted in Tantra and Taoism. The Taoists gave us the meridians of the body that we use today in Chinese medicine for acupuncture. And all of those meridian points for use for acupuncture are not only external, especially for women, they're also internal. There are internal reflexology points in the vaginal canal, in the cervix, and all of those areas. The cervix is particularly a place where energetically we can hold a lot of grief and heartbreak. And so it's not just a matter of, I'm going to go and explore my cervix now and start poking around there. No, it's often a very tender place, and there's a lot of healing work that needs to go on to be able to resensitize it to a place where it can actually experience pleasure. And I find that our vaginas and our vulvas hold so much of our personal, emotional, and relational histories of heartbreak, sexual trauma, grief, and closing up of our hearts or self-protection. And so the journey to becoming a multi-orgasmic, you can have multiple orgasms, you can have full body energetic orgasms, and they're quite advanced sexual practices to be able to achieve. And it is a practice. Pleasure is a practice. Just like anything, you can strengthen your muscle if you practice and you train. But there is a healing journey that needs to be embarked upon in order to release a lot of the conditioning and the shame around our bodies, and then to heal what we're actually holding so that we can surrender and release into our greatest pleasure.
I think there is a lot of protection that happens around that for girls. The first time someone breaks up with us, the first time someone makes a comment about something, it's all very body related, and then it can be vagina related, and you tend to start closing down, and you're not really going, this is what I want. You're actually closing down and going, I don't want to do that in case someone makes a comment, or an old boyfriend or whatever. I feel like most of us are with our current partners or husbands in a place where they're very supportive, and if you're not, that's obviously a totally different journey. But we hold on to a lot of grief and past experiences. And I have to speak to my husband and other men about it, but I just don't think they hold on to it in the same place.
They hold on to it differently. They still hold on to it.
100%.
I think also men have their own conditioning around sexuality. A lot of the times I find men can be very disconnected. Their sexuality can be quite disconnected from their emotional landscape. And that's because they haven't been raised in a way where it's safe for them to experience the full range, depth and breadth of their emotional landscape and have that kind of integrate with their sexuality. So I do think that they hold on to it, but obviously, like you said, it's very different, and they probably hold on to it in different ways and in different places. We all in this world and society and culture that we live in are living in a very disconnected, disembodied way. And the journey is back through our bodies and coming back to being mothers and giving birth. That's a very physical experience in the body, whether you give birth naturally, vaginally, or whether you have a cesarean birth, whichever way you come to motherhood, really, it's a physical journey for you and your body can feel like it's not your own anymore. And
the changes that go on, right?
Yeah, you're just like, when am I going to get my body back?
Yes. You kind of go, what the fuck is this now? What just happened? And it's never the same. And my hips are wider than they were pre-babies. The things don't sit the exact same way. And that's the whole thing of us trying to get back into ourselves as well, because that's a journey in itself. That comes with menopause as well, right? Your body changes, you metabolize differently. It's great that there's a whole movement happening about that and the things we can do to help with all of that. But it's definitely such a journey for us. And that's the difference we have with men, is men stay the same. Yes, they go through an emotional change, but we go through a whole body change. Our brains change. Our bodies are no longer the same. Everything changes for us. And it's a real journey. One of the things you did say in your podcast is about loving you again as well, because love is the fear of the what ifs. and it holds us hostage. I think we do that a lot as we get older and having kids as well. I don't love to make it just about having kids because there's obviously a lot of women out there that don't have children. But it really holds us hostage of just not loving us.
Absolutely. And that comes back to a lot of our conditioning as well. We're conditioned in this cultural soup of our bodies need to be thinner or fitter or stronger. We're not raised with your body is beautiful just as it is and it's magical and capable of unlimited amounts of pleasure and let me teach you how to use it. We're kind of raised in this cultural soup of you're not enough, you need to change, you're not beautiful enough, you're not this enough. And then it even can come down to we have so much shame around how we look naked a lot of the time. Just a level of discomfort.
Turn the lights off. And our husbands are like, what are you turning the lights off for? But we think that they want the lights off. Or it's actually about us. It's not about them. They're really accepting generally. And if you are getting comments, tell them to go fuck themselves.
That's right. That's a whole other thing.
In most relationships, they are like, hey, whatever you want, I'm willing to give it a go.
Yeah, they're just grateful that you're in the room.
Just like, hello, this has been like 3 weeks now, 4 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. They're like, I don't care what you're wearing or what you look like.
I am here.
What you're doing, I am here.
Let's go.
Exactly. I think we have to be grateful for that. I think we are more judgmental of ourselves, especially sexually, than our partners are. And we seem to still put this veil up and we're like, oh no, we have to behave in this way. And probably if we did behave in the way we wanted to, our husbands would be, holy fuck, this is the best thing in the world. My husband sent me an article. I still yet to read it. Sorry, Gab. It was like, sex keeps you younger. And I can actually see that. Sex keeps you younger. It's initiating a hormone response, right? So it's probably doing a lot for you in perimenopause, menopause, when you actually don't really want to have it. It's just like, I need a bit more estrogen now. I'll read that when I want to. But I think there's probably some kind of merit in that keeping our sexuality and feeling desired actually would increase our feelings of euphoria and self-worth.
That also comes to a point I'd love to touch on about context, because we live such busy, overscheduled lives where you're giving of yourself so much and hopefully creating space throughout your day to take pleasure in maybe a hot coffee, cup of tea or hot chocolate, a warm shower with your favorite body lotion. If you can build in those moments of self-care that are just for yourself without needing to give or be on for anyone else, and then recognizing the context that you need. It's different for everyone. You can even bring in neurodivergence here, because I'm extremely personally and professionally interested in the intersection of sexuality, sexual liberation, and neurodivergence. But you bring in the context that you need for your desire to start to stir again, because getting to the end of your overscheduled day, you're exhausted and you've got to cook the kids dinner or put the kids to bed, and then everything needs to be cleaned up. And then after that, you're just done. And if your partner looks at you and you're just like, oh God, I can't, I've got nothing.
Yeah. Right? I can outsource that. Look,
yeah.
I'm happy.
No context there for your desire to emerge. There's nothing there that supports your desire to naturally emerge. Thinking about, what is it that I need? Do I need to have the lights off, candles lit, or soft music? Is there something sensory that I can do that would make things more inviting? Is there something I can ask my partner to do or create or respond in some way that would allow, not a sexual encounter by any means, not to put yourself under any pressure, but just to start to allow a little bit of flirtation to develop, allow something to blossom there that might lead or might not.
You mentioned you chart that path back to yourself and your body, but it's also about creating a new ecosystem for you to thrive within yourself. As we said, we don't want to go back to what we were like in our 20s. Most of us were trying to please people and you're super self-conscious, whereas I think we actually are less self-conscious now, even though we may have issues a bit more with our bodies now, I would probably argue we're less self-conscious. How do we get back to that ecosystem? What are your suggestions on how do we actually move forward and get there? Without a vibrator, it's not for men. I could just have that and not have the other stuff.
Yeah, it's so tempting, isn't it? Because they've come up with such amazing technology nowadays too.
I think we could all live without men. That's a hard thing for men.
Well, our pleasure isn't dependent on it. And the majority of women don't orgasm from penetration alone. So
Yeah.
kind of needs to shift. That understanding of what we define sex as needs to shift as well. But in terms of talking about creating that ecosystem where you can thrive, where you do chart that path to who you are becoming and not looking backwards to who you used to be anymore. And it's a journey of paying attention to what really lights you up now, giving yourself full permission to follow that, indulge in that, and seeing that as sacred and not selfish, seeing those moments that give you pleasure as something worthy of protecting, holding boundaries around, and allowing yourself to explore. So whatever it is that lights you up, that gives you pleasure, is going to be the pathway that leads you to who you are becoming. It can be really simple things, really little things, a hot cup of tea by yourself, reading your favorite book in bed alone for half an hour before your partner comes in to join you, if that's what lights you up.
I could be talking to your husband about that or your partner about that as well. Like just say, I just need 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't come in.
Don't talk to me. Don't come in the room. I'm taking this time for myself, and also including them in the conversation too, right? You can have those. I'm changing. I'm trying to work out a new way forward. It might be confusing. I still love you. I still want to stay connected with you, but I still need this time. Negotiating your needs and keeping them in the loop of what's going on, I think can be really nourishing and nurturing, because they do tend to feel shut out a lot of the time. And a lot of the time we can just unconsciously shut them out as a way of, God, I just need this time. Like,
a way of protecting ourselves. There's that mental load that a lot of women talk about. We've just got so much going on all the time. Maybe that's why we grow more white matter is to pray when we're afraid. It's just never stops. So I'll say to my husband, what are you thinking about? And he's like, nothing. And really? You actually think about nothing? He's like, there's literally nothing going on in here. And he can be in this really stressful time at his work or whatever, but he gets home and he's thinking about nothing. And I'm like, fuck, I'm thinking about how the kids have got to get this and this to school, and they've got to prep this and they haven't done this, and oh goodness, I've got to do this for work. But your brain's going a million miles an hour and you're fucking thinking about fucking nothing. You fucker. And then we start to get resentful, right? That's what happens in a relationship. We start going, I fucking hate you because you're thinking about nothing. And I'm carrying this load of everything. And I think we've got to try and work past that, don't we?
Absolutely. And keeping those conversations open. That's a big thing that I think a lot of couples are navigating, especially as we said earlier in this podcast, as children of the 70s and 80s, coming from where our mothers were still grappling with being homemakers and housewives.
We're still trying to prove ourselves as females. I think the generation's changed a little bit from women of 60s and early 70s, where it was, we are going to be a man. That's how we want to play in a man's world. Now we're bringing our womanness into the corporate world, because what we have to offer doesn't have to be filled with high levels of testosterone and being, well, I think, because I'm not saying men are mean, but being really like, this is how it is, because I feel like when women do it, it has a different, it's sometimes playing in a space that we don't need to play in. We actually can bring a lot to the table if we're bringing our true selves. And I think that's changing. I think that we're struggling with, right, we're supposed to be this mother, but we're supposed to be a leader and a mentor. There's just so much happening for us. And I do see my girls viewing the world differently, more equally.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to see this new generation coming up, taking it in a new direction. There is so much more diversity, inclusion, and equality already that I'm seeing in my own kids as well. I'm so excited to see that and to support that, because we've learned everything that our mothers did or our mothers' mothers did. Each lineage has their own challenges and everyone's doing the best that they can. In my own motherhood journey, when I look at my daughters, I see myself as I was at that age. The way that I'm parenting them now is very different to the way I was parented. And that's where I think a lot of the shift and the change for this new generation can come in. We've really got a different level of understanding of how to parent and support, and a different level of understanding around trauma and integration now too. They feel like our lineage is coming from a place of unintegrated trauma. A lot of us are learning, okay, well, I can stop that cycle now. I don't have to pass it on to my children. So taking that stand in your ancestral lineage and knowing that you can stop those cycles, making different choices in your parenting journey, seeing yourself as your own inner child in your children just supports this new generation so beautifully. The transformation I feel like we're going to see in the next generation is going to be mind-blowing.
Yeah, I am too. I have to stop myself sometimes from getting stressed about what I experienced, remembering what I went through at her age, because I was undiagnosed ADHD. I was super crazy and athletic. I just wanted to bounce off the walls all the time, and making sure I don't put my insecurities onto my daughter subconsciously. And I see her, or both of them, embracing the difference, embracing who they are and owning it, as opposed to trying to be that good girl. And that's where I see that shift. It's not all about being this good girl, or you're not smart enough, or you're just a girl. There's such a change around that now. I watch movies that were made in the 80s, like Little Rascals. I started watching
God, I know.
Oh my goodness. I started watching it because I loved this when I was young. I was such a tomboy too. And my husband actually said to me, watching. And I was like, I actually don't know. I ended up turning it off because it was so bad. It was so sexist.
Yes.
This was the messaging we used to get. And now the messaging they get is like Elsa and how good they just come together. And so their whole messaging from a young age is very different. I even think that the way they grow up sexually as well is going to be different, because it's much more of a conversation now. Like, my mum didn't talk to me about periods or sex. God, that's a bit taboo, even though she was a woman of the 60s. But it's like they shut down when they had kids. They were so about their femininity, and then they completely shut down when they became parents, because their upbringing started to come into play as well. It's great that there's a shift, and I hope us as parents, I'm sure our kids will totally be in therapy talking about all the ways we fuck them up. Probably me, it'll be like my mum talks about vaginas all the time. And yours
would be the same. Be like, my mum wouldn't shut up about sex and all these orgasms.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, what's that movie with not Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, Meet the Parents?
Oh yeah,
the sex fuckers. Yeah, that's she's the fuckers. The tantric sex mom.
I love her. Oh my God.
And he's present. Yes, you'll be Barbara. You're Barbara.
Barbara.
Oh God, that's like, I'd love to be Barbara. I'm going to be Jane Fonda, I think.
I'd be Barbara.
But I think there's a really good shift, but we have to be careful about going back to where we were subconsciously putting those insecurities on our kids, especially when it comes to sexuality and sex, because we were in this age, in this generation where it was a little taboo, and our parents, it was even worse. Women didn't have sex for fun. It was just a man thing. And it was still that time too where if a woman had too much sex, they were loose or they were whereas I think we don't use that terminology as much either anymore, which I'm seeing even in the way we talk with friends, or you'd hear boys talk. Maybe they are, but I don't feel it's being used as much.
I feel there's a reverse thing going on with that terminology. They're really being reclaimed. Like the term slut can be used as a term of endearment almost. And the same with the word pussy. There's a beautiful book by Mama Gina called Pussy, a Reclamation, which is all about reclaiming the power of that word pussy as a powerful word. And so I feel there is that shift in attitudes. and a reclaiming of what used to be disempowering terminology.
Yes. It was
like
a weakness. It's like you're a pussy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was used to slander people instead of a term of empowerment. I really love that shift in language.
Yeah, and which is crazy too, because I know we've spoken about this before on other calls. It said that you're a pussy, you're weak, you're gross and balls. Yet, as we've said, you touch balls and they're all like in a fetal position. It's like, oh my God, don't touch me. And I'm like, oh, please, our pussies can take such a pounding. They're tough. Be a pussy. Right?
And physically, balls are so weak and vulnerable.
Yeah. They are the most
amazing
of the man's body are their balls, and people say, let's grow a pair of balls. I horse ride. I don't want fucking balls. That would hurt. I don't know how men horse ride.
You can push a person through a vagina. That's so much more powerful.
There is a lot that happens down there. And we have totally digressed off sexual intimacy. So coming back on track, could you explain a little bit more? Because I don't know much about Tantra and Taoism. How do we tap into this?
Tantra is this incredibly vast and expansive lineage and wisdom tradition that is all-encompassing. The really beautiful part of it that I really love is that it welcomes and sees all parts of the human experience and all parts of you as divine. Even the parts that, if you've been raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition, I was raised Catholic in Catholic schools, and you learn to disconnect from shameful parts of yourself. Your sexuality, like we've discussed, is shameful. So we disconnect from that part of ourselves. We disconnect from envy or jealousy, anger, whatever it is that you've been socialized to see as unacceptable. We usually disconnect from those parts and see them as bad. Tantra is this incredible tradition that sees all aspects of your experience, your human experience, as divine. Sexuality is divine. Your anger is divine. Envy, jealousy, all the hard, difficult emotions are divine. They're just as divine as happiness, joy, bliss, ecstasy, everything like that. And a lot of people, when they hear the word Tantra, think, oh, it's just about sex. And it's not. It's a way of life. It's a way of approaching life.
I didn't realize that.
Sex is just a tiny part. It's so vast that it's too much to go in here. But the way that I work within the tradition, the practices that I work with are sacred sexuality practices from the tantric leftist tradition and the more recent neo-tantric practices. Neo-tantra is basically tantric practices that have been innovated to suit the modern needs of people in Western society. So in our modern society, neo-tantric practices are the sexuality practices that can reconnect you to your body, that can offer you healing and sexual liberation through practices that physically and directly address your mental, emotional, and physiological needs. And Taoism is this incredible tradition, which is so much more than sexuality, but the Taoists actually innovated sexuality practices that were designed to heal. What's beautiful about the Taoist tradition is that they had specific practices and traditions for healing female sexuality in particular, which is just so gorgeous and based around what I said earlier about the meridians that we use in acupuncture today, and that there are internal meridians within the vaginal canal, your cervix, your vulva, that can be, when used like different pressure points, maybe you use something like a jade or a crystal egg for your practices, you can actually heal different organ systems through your sexuality. So they're these beautiful traditions that help you to reconnect to your desire, to your libido, to your body in a new way that is really anchored internally. And I know a lot of what we discussed today was how we're socialized to be more externally focused.
Yes.
These traditions bring you back to your essence, to your truth, to an internal compass that then aligns you and puts you on this magnificent journey of discovering, what do I actually find pleasurable? What is my sexuality? My sexuality is for me. It's not for anybody else. My pleasure is mine. No one can give me pleasure. That's a big misconception. A lot of the times we see our partners as either the giver or responsible for, or he doesn't give me an orgasm, or he can't do that for me. Like maybe we're sexually incompatible. Really, these practices align you with the truth that your sexuality, your pleasure is yours. You can share it with others or keep it for yourself. Your partner giving you an orgasm is really you opening up into orgasm with a partner. And you can only really do that in a truly surrendered way if you know your internal sexual landscape, if you know your body, if you love your body enough to go on that journey and explore it and learn what it needs to experience pleasure. And a lot of us just don't go on that journey because it's scary and confronting. I feel like our sexuality is a distillation of every part of our experience of life. It's our emotional landscape, our spiritual landscape, our trauma landscape, all our unworthiness, all our body issues. It's all tied up in this really potent part of what drives us in life, which is our sexuality and our desire. These practices really anchor you in, and it's a way of being able to explore yourself. It gives you the structure and the practices that allow you to explore your sexuality and heal it. If there's trauma, if there's betrayal, if there's experiences that are keeping your sexuality and your ability to surrender to pleasure locked down, these practices and these traditions give you a pathway to unlocking all of that.
Wow. As if you are wanting to embark on these journeys, I know you have your own clinic. What is the best way to start and get involved? Because obviously it's a very personal journey that we're probably not going to go through on a podcast. How do you embark on this, whether it be with you or with a coach? What are those processes?
Myself, I run a one-on-one coaching package called Rebirth, which is all about rebirthing that new self and who you want to become and reconnecting to your sexuality. I feel because it's very individualized for everyone's journey. How you can get from where you are now, if you're feeling really disconnected from yourself, from your pleasure, if you're struggling with not loving your body and feeling shame and embarrassment and all that stuff and feeling depleted. So you can go on that one-on-one journey with me, or you can do this work with anyone who has a certification. Be very careful with who you do embark on sacred sexuality journey with, because there's a lot of people out there that just kind of present the information as if it was their own and it happened in a vacuum. You really want to be working with someone who is certified, who has a reputation and a background in understanding what trauma looks like and understanding what their scope of practice is and how they can support you on that journey. Because a lot of the time there will be traumas that will uncover and when you move forward. A really good way to kind of dip your toes into it is just through, like I also have a masterclass. It's like a pleasure anatomy masterclass. Yeah. It's the sexuality education every woman needs but never got. So it talks about all of those orgasms. It talks about how you can experience those orgasms. It talks about sexuality and desire. And it gives you these really simple embodiment practices that you can do to understand, integrate, and dip your toe into these things.
Where would someone find that? Your website?
Come to Pilates.com, which is like Pilates but with a V, because it's like vaginal Pilates sort of thing.
Oh, I love that. Pilates? That could be any. Love that.
Every garage needs Pilates.
I'm going to mention that now. Pilates. Are you doing Pilates?
Yeah, totally.
Vaginal Pilates. Oh,
yeah. So just Pilates.
You just made my day. New word for my vocabulary. Pilates.
Pilates, right?
Pilates.
Have you done your Pilates today?
Have you done your Pilates today? Oh,
right.
Yeah.
A really simple way of connecting in, right? Yeah. So you go to my website. It's vilates.com. You mentioned earlier I've got a podcast, The Ecology of Intimacy, but the website is really the first point, and you can see my offerings on there or contact me through there. I'm on Instagram, which is Pilates with a little underscore afterwards. That's it, really.
I love that. Pilates. Oh, it's so awesome. I feel we could talk all day about vaginas and Pilates.
I know.
Our next episode, Pilates. Have you done your Pilates today? I think that's brilliant. We need to be more open about it. We need to talk about it and be more educated, because we have been told that our vaginas are something we don't look at, we don't touch, we don't like. That is the message that we were given, and that needs to change. I love how you're like, it's a real journey and a self-discovery on who we are. It's a dealing of past traumas, whether they be sexual or not. It doesn't have to be. We hold a lot of trauma there. We're told that it's not an area that we're supposed to talk about or look at or touch. And we get to this age and we're like, what the fuck are we doing with ourselves? We actually have no idea who we are, what we're doing. I think having those conversations about every part of our body is really important. So we would definitely have to touch on Pilates.
Love that. And it's a gift to yourself to have these conversations, right? And to do this work. It's a real privilege and it's a real gift.
And I think women love to share. Once we break down that barrier of pretending we're something else or that everything's perfect and our lives are completely intact, because that's what we've been trained to do as well. You're supposed to portray a Stepford wife, or I've got it all together at work, or whatever that may be. Once we really break down, women love to share and support other women when we're vulnerable. It's really important to be there and to talk about these things, because we have lost our tribe. We're not at home anymore, which I think is a great thing. But it also means we've lost our tribe of women that we talk to. I see that difference between my husband. His work is so full of men that they're all sharing and doing things. That they'll play golf or softball or go and do something. We tend not to do that as much because we've always got that what if, or hang on, I've got to look after the kids. And we have lost a little bit of that connection. And it's really important. Thank you for coming and sharing your experiences, and it's awesome. So I think we want to go and look at your website and do Pilates.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Kate. It's just been such a delight to be here and talk with you. I love our conversation so much.
I feel like we could be here forever.
Yes, we could. Let's do more.
Till next time, my beautiful vaginas, water those lady gardens because they are worth it. Please note that this podcast is for entertainment purposes and informational purposes only. The content shared is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns or before making any health-related decisions. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests, and it does not represent those of any medical organisation or institution.